All right, sorry for the technological delay. So today and Thursday we're going to talk about mood disorders. A couple of announcements. The answers to the multiple choice questions are up on BSpace. We'll post the scores by Thursday on how you've done the exam, and you'll get your essays back in section next week. And so I'll say more about that on Thursday. All right, a quote for the day. We haven't had one of these in a while, so here it is. Somebody who actually listened to our podcast sent that to me, so I thought that was pretty good. All right, so mood disorders. This is a chapter that's in the book. They have been reorganized a bit in DSM-5, and there are two new mood disorders that weren't in the diagnostic system prior to DSM-5. So there's just some different chapters. The criteria for depression really haven't changed all that much. The criteria for bipolar have changed in one way. So one of the new disorders in DSM-5 is called disruptive mood dysregulation disorder. This is just for kids between the ages of 6 and 18. And the reason that this was put in there was to try to capture some of the kids who were being diagnosed with bipolar disorder, but who probably don't have bipolar disorder. Because instead, here are the criteria for disruptive mood dysregulation disorder. These are kids that are doing, having a lot of temper tantrums, but extreme temper tantrums. So between, again, the ages of 6 and 18, not the toddler I just showed you in the picture, but these are out of proportion in terms of their intensity or duration to the situation or provocation. They're happening 3 or more times a week in at least 2 different settings, so not just at home, but also at school or out in public or over to friends, so they're not just something that's happening at home. And they are persistent. They've lasted for at least 12 months or more. So this is some mood disturbance in children, extreme irritability, anger, temper outbursts that happens pretty frequently in multiple settings, and that's lasted for a year. Prior to DSM-5, these kids were being diagnosed with bipolar disorder, and there was a really explosion in the number of cases of children diagnosed with bipolar disorder who probably didn't have it. So that's why this one was added. So we'll see what happens over the coming years with this, how many children are actually diagnosed with this. And then the other one that's new to the mood disorders in DSM-5 is something that's been hanging around in the appendix of DSM-4 and before, called premenstrual dysphoric disorder. So you can guess by the name that it's only going to impact women here, and it's mood stuff that's really tied up with a woman's menstrual period here. So having a particular constellation of mood symptoms, whether they're labile, meaning they're just all over the place, up and down, anxious, depressed, irritable, alongside some other symptoms of depression, which we're going to go to in detail in here just a minute, anhedonia, troubles concentrating, problems with appetite, physical pain or bloating that can go along with monthly menstruation, and then you have to have at least five of these symptoms in the week prior to menstruation. So this will be one of those that is going to be looked at very closely to see, are we pathologizing something that many women experience that shouldn't be pathologized, or is this something that goes beyond PMS, as it's been come to know in lay language, and something a little bit more severe? So time will tell, but it's made it into the actual DSM now, whereas before it was always just in the appendix. So presumably there's at least some research to support this criteria set, so we'll see. Now, let's talk about depression, or what in DSM-5 is called major depressive disorder, or MDD. Very common, one of the more common of all the disorders we'll talk about this semester. As high as 16% of the population will have experienced an episode of major depressive disorder at some point in their life. And this is not just a sad spell. Everybody can feel sad, but this is not just a sad spell. So what is it? So here are the symptoms. So to meet the criteria for major depressive disorder, you have to have had a sad mood for at least 2 weeks. And this is not just sad mood for 2 weeks, but it's feeling sad or down for pretty much every day, for most of the day, from when you wake up and when you go to sleep, just feeling very, very sad and down, unrelenting really, for most of the day, every day, for at least 2 weeks. So you have to have this symptom, or you have to have anhedonia. Anhedonia means literally without pleasure, and what this symptom is referring to is that people who have anhedonia no longer enjoy or get pleasure out of the things that they once did. So if you used to like to listen to music, that's no longer enjoyable. Or if you used to like to play with your pets, now you can take them or leave them. Food, I used to enjoy a good meal, now I just don't really care so much about food. Surfing the web or doing, playing video games, computer, no, just don't really care for it. So that's anhedonia in a nutshell. The things that you once enjoyed doing, you no longer enjoy. So to meet the criteria for depression in DSM-5 and in DSM-4, you've got to have at least one of these two things, either sad mood for at least 2 weeks or anhedonia. Then you've got to have 4 more symptoms. So what are these other symptoms? Well, first, there's got to be some sort of change in your sleeping, and that could be you're sleeping more than you usually are, or it could be you're sleeping less than you usually are. It could be that you go to sleep at your usual time, but you wake up at 3 in the morning and you cannot for the life of you go back to sleep. Or you wake up several times and you can't go back to sleep. So there's some sort of change in your sleeping. There's also a change in your appetite, and this could be that you're just really not interested in food, you're not hungry, you just don't feel hungry, you don't want to eat a darn thing. Or it could mean that you're eating all the time and you can't eat enough. You're just eating. So some sort of change in your appetite. Most often it's a reduction in appetite and a reduction in eating, and then a corresponding weight loss, a fairly large amount of weight in a short period of time that was not intended or not the reason for stopping eating. Also, another symptom is having just a general lack of energy and extreme fatigue. Of course, these are related to if you're not eating very much and not sleeping very much, but just feeling tired and not having the energy to do anything. Just the thought of getting up and going to class, overwhelming. Can't do it, don't got that kind of energy. Another symptom is some sort of change in your motor movement. So it could be agitation, meaning you're fidgety all the time, you can't sit still, you're kind of feeling like you're jumping out of your skin, shaky, just jittery. Or it could be what's called psychomotor retardation, where you're just, every movement is slow. Like you're living your life as if you've just taken a slow motion movie on your iPhone. Every movement is super duper slow. So one of those changes in motor movement. Another symptom is a more cognitive symptom here. You blame yourself. You feel guilty for things that you really shouldn't feel guilty for, so you're blaming yourself for the government shutdown when you, of course, have nothing to do with it. Or you feel guilty about the time when you were in kindergarten and you didn't invite that mean girl in your class over to your birthday party. So things that you really shouldn't feel guilty for that are either not your fault or things that happened long, long ago you feel guilty about. And then just a general feeling of worthlessness. Like you just don't feel like you've got much worth in the world. You're just kind of a big loser with a big L on your forehead. You just don't feel very good about yourself at all. Another symptom here, 2 more symptoms. One is trouble concentrating. So for the life of you, you cannot focus to concentrate for studying for an upcoming exam, for reading in your class, or just paying attention and even focusing on a TV show. Even with no commercials, daunting. You just cannot focus on anything for very long at all. And then thoughts of suicide, from ideation, just having ideas about wanting to end your life, to actually having a plan for committing suicide and an intent to actually carry through on that plan. So to meet the criteria for depression, you've got to have the sad mood or anhedonia, and then you've got to have 4 more from this list of symptoms for a period of at least 2 weeks. That meets the DSM-5 criteria for depression. Now, there was a fairly big change in DSM-5 depression. One of the things that's missing in DSM-5 depression is this. This was what was in DSM-4. There was this little text in there that said these symptoms are not better accounted for by bereavement. So, for example, after the loss of a loved one. So that, though, that it was called, it's called the bereavement exclusion, is now gone out of DSM-5 entirely. So now, with DSM-5, it's possible if someone is experiencing those symptoms that I just showed you, say sad mood, they can't concentrate, their appetite is horrible, they're not sleeping very well, and their parent just passed away 3 weeks ago. That is now called major depressive disorder in DSM-5, whereas before DSM-5 it was just called bereavement. It's grief, the typical reaction to a horrible loss that someone has endured. So that's a very big and somewhat controversial change now that now all of a sudden there's no such thing as grieving anymore. It's just everything's going to be called major depressive disorder, potentially in DSM-5. There is, but she's saying, is there a little note that says, hey, watch out for bereavement? That doesn't change the fact that many people now are going to likely be diagnosed with major depressive disorder following the loss during bereavement. So it's no longer an explicit exclusion like it was in DSM-4. Now, there's another change in DSM-5. It's a change in name only, though, really. What we called in DSM-4 dysthymia is now called persistent depressive disorder in DSM-5. And actually, the dysthymia is still in parentheses. So here, what dysthymia is, or now called persistent depressive disorder, is somebody who has persistent depression, so perhaps it's a better name. Somebody who has chronic depressed mood, but not the same, the criteria are not necessarily the same as major depressive disorder. It's just this feeling of sadness, prolonged sadness, for far, far longer than 2 weeks, for years. Just a general feeling of down, being down, having a chronic depressed mood for years. If someone then has this persistent depressive disorder, and then actually, in the context of just feeling down all the time, they can still then have an episode of depression, where they've got now not only the sad mood, but all the other symptoms along with it. That's then called double depression. Somebody who has got dysthymia, or what's now called persistent depressive disorder, and an actual episode of depression, double depression. So you've got all the symptoms, an actual episode of depression, on top of dysthymia, or persistent depressive disorder. So even if someone doesn't have an episode of depression and this double depression, having persistent depressive disorder can be quite debilitating. Just imagine, if you will, what your life would be like if you were persistently and chronically sad all the time. That would just be very difficult, wouldn't it? I mean, just think about the impact it might have on your social relationships and on just your overall life and well-being. So I'm going to break out of this here for a second because I can't get it to work in PowerPoint. And we're going to take a look at a film of a woman who's got some depression symptoms. And so be thinking, as we watch this, what are the symptoms that you're seeing as she talks about her experiences? And interesting. Sorry about that. That is not her. Still not. Jenna or Erica?
This will be a more than interview, just like we've had before, although we haven't been videotaped before. How long have you been feeling poorly? What's that like for you?
I think I figured out that I've been sad, depressed most of my life. I can remember times, I told you I think before that I had a headache in high school for a year and a half.
Jenna.
And I think that's kind of when it started. And then there have been different periods in my life when I remember being so down I wanted to end it all. And then that kind of went away. I haven't felt suicidal like every day for all 46 years, but there have been periods when it's been particularly bad.
Is this one of those periods?
Yeah, I've been having a really bad time since May. There doesn't seem to be a reason for it.
Okay, how many months total would that be since May?
Since May, I guess that's
About
6 months. Yeah.
About 4 or 5 months, okay. What was the first thing that you noticed in May that gave you the signal that you were heading down again?
I got mad at my children. I went to bed for 2 days.
So was irritability one of the early
Yeah.
symptoms? What did you do when you went to bed for 2 days?
I locked my door and I stayed in there for 2 days, and I came out when they went to bed and were asleep. So I came out and ate like at 4 in the morning and then went back upstairs.
What was your mood like during those days?
I was suicidal. I was a wreck. I was mad at myself because I put myself in that position. I was mad at them because they didn't care enough to come and get me out of my room. I didn't know how to end it. I mean, I went to my room and I closed the door because I was angry, and then I didn't know how to come out.
I want to understand more exactly what you mean by feeling depressed. What does depression mean to you?
Physically, I'm lethargic to the point of not wanting to get out of bed, not wanting to shower. If my children aren't home like they've been in college, I sometimes stay in bed in the past for a couple of days, on and off. If I'm not working, I can do that. I feel like my arms are so heavy, I cannot lift them.
How do you feel about yourself?
Oh, I hate me. I really hate me. I hate the way I look. I hate the way I feel. I hate the way I talk to other people.
Do you find yourself feeling guilty about that?
All the time. I do everything wrong.
Do you find yourself feeling guilty about things far in the past that are way past doing anything?
Like 20, 30 years ago, something I said to somebody that hurt their feelings, and I didn't mean to do.
Do you have much, when you're feeling that way, do you have much hope for the future? Is there any hope in your view, or is that gone?
The only hope I had, the only thing I was hanging on to all these years was I was waiting for my children to get through college so that I could be done. I felt that was kind of a goal that I wanted to get to, and it's done. And I don't know where else to go. I have to find something else to do with me because there just isn't anything to do.
So you feel like
Really
you don't have much of a
hopeless.
purpose?
No, nothing.
There's no purpose
Right.
for you. You mentioned feeling suicidal. Has that been every day? Has that feeling stayed with you throughout the 5 months?
It's almost every day. I try not to concentrate on it like, this is Thursday, am I going to think about it today? But I do find it almost every day that I think this just isn't worth it. This hurt, this pain, this.
Yeah. Have you thought of a particular way to hurt yourself? Have you thought of hurting yourself, killing yourself?
When I drive, I think I'm going to drive off the side of the road. What I'm really worried about is that I'm afraid I wouldn't die, and that I would just be hurt, and that would be worse for my family.
I see. Do you have to fight off the impulse to turn your car off the road at times?
Yeah, sometimes. Not this week.
Great.
But I have in the past. I drove onto the shoulder of the road a couple of times and stopped, just crying, sobbing.
Do you cry? I noticed that you were
All the time.
tearful a minute ago. Do you cry a lot?
All the time. All the time. It's almost uncontrollable. I mean, I cry about stupid things.
How about your sleep? Is there a sleep disturbance?
I've been having trouble with my sleep, I guess, for quite a while. I wake up in the middle of the night.
Do you ever wake up at 4 or 5 in the morning and you're unable to get back to sleep?
Absolutely.
How do you feel? What's in your mind when you wake up at 4 or 5 in the morning?
I'm really tired. I'm physically heavy.
How about your sex drive?
I don't have one anymore, but I'm not sexually active.
But that's gone.
Yeah.
Very diminished. Do these episodes of feeling depressed, do they come at a particular time of year?
I haven't been able to pinpoint that there's.
When you feel depressed, how does that affect your relationships with other people?
I'll stop it there. So just listening to her, what are some of the symptoms that you heard her talking about? Sleep changes. Okay, there's one. What else? Yeah. Irritability. Okay. What? Yeah. Right. So kind of the lack of energy. Yeah. Well, suicide. Right. Guilty. Yep. What? Focus on her flaws. Right. Yeah. Yep. What about sad mood or anhedonia? She has to have that. She wasn't interested in stuff and lots of sex drive. Right. Okay. Sad mood. She had them all. Right. So she did. She had quite a bit. All right. Well, let's switch and then we'll talk about bipolar disorder now. So the diagnosis of bipolar disorder used to be called manic depression. Sometimes people still do call it that. To meet the criteria for bipolar disorder, or at least what's called bipolar 1 disorder, there's two bipolars. There's a bipolar 1 disorder and a bipolar 2. To meet the DSM criteria for bipolar 1 disorder, you have to have at least one lifetime episode of mania. That's it. You don't have to have any depression whatsoever. Even though we think, well, manic depression, you have to have both ups and downs, mania and depression. No. To meet criteria for bipolar 1, you have to just have one lifetime episode of mania. So what is mania? Sorry, that got cut off there. So having an expansive, elevated, or irritable mood. And here it's most of the day, again, nearly every day, but now it's just a period of 1 week. So having your mood feeling high on top of the world, everything is great. That's a fairly common clinical presentation of mania, but sometimes people have just extreme irritability, and which is why that was so confusing in kids. So expansive, elevated, nearly every day, most of the day for a period of 1 week. And, so the big and in all caps, this is what's new in DSM-5. There has to be an increase in activity. Sorry, again, it's getting cut off. Let me just fix that. An increase in activity and energy. So somebody has to have both this elevated, expansive mood, feeling high on top of the world, and increase in activity and energy, limitless energy. I've got all the energy in the world. I can just go, 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 go. I don't need to stop. So this is new. This increase, it's not just about mood. Now there's this increase in activity that's required for the diagnosis of mania. And then there has to be 3 more symptoms. Increase in goal-directed activity, that is kind of the same as increased activity and energy. So ruthless pursuit of goals. And not just one goal, like you're all in college, your goal is to graduate from UC Berkeley, a very good goal pursuit. But somebody who might be manic might have the goal to not only graduate from Berkeley, but to do so in 1 year, and then get into medical school and law school simultaneously, and complete those within 2 years. So the goal setting for someone who's manic, the goals are super high, almost impossible to achieve, but yet that doesn't slow somebody down. Unusual talkativeness and racing thought. So what this means usually is that people with mania talk a lot and really, really rapidly. So much so that you as a listener can hardly keep up. Now, I know I talk rapidly in here quite a bit, but it would be like me in hyperdrive speaking 10 times faster and flitting from topic to topic to topic to topic to topic. So a lot of ideas, thoughts are racing in someone's head. It's coming out in increased amount of talking and the speed with which people are talking. Sometimes it's called pressured speech. In contrast to depression, people who are manic have a reduced need for sleep. And so sometimes people will sleep for maybe 30 minutes, an hour, a night, and wake up feeling refreshed. I'm good to go, got lots to do, got many plans, big goals, got to get going. So really, people are sleeping less and they have a reduced need for it. Also, grandiosity. So this is a little bit like what I was describing in these goal pursuits. The idea that you can graduate from Berkeley undergrad and MCB in a year and then do medical school and law school at the same time in 2 years. A little bit grandiose to think that could be accomplished. Also being very distracted. So somebody might be having a conversation with you and they're talking very rapidly and they're talking about all these wonderful things that are going on. Oh, look, there was a hummingbird. Isn't that pretty? So all of a sudden their attention can be distracted over here, there, and then talking on and on about very rapidly about hummingbirds. And then reckless behavior. This can take many different forms. Often it's in excessive spending. Racking up huge amount of credit card debt beyond the huge amount of credit card debt that sadly many Americans have. But just buying things like, I really wanted to sail. I'm going to buy a sailboat. And then going out and buying a sailboat. And then I don't like my car. I'm going to get a new car. Excessive big time spending. Taking trips. Another kind of reckless behavior is taking trips. Just taking off. Like, what? I'm going to Las Vegas. Why not? And just dropping, job, school, other obligations, and just going. Another kind of risky behavior that sometimes people in a manic episode can get involved in is risky sexual behavior. So meeting somebody for the first time. Let's get married. Why not? Going off and getting married. Or meeting, one person after the next, after the next, after the next. Does anybody here watch the Showtime series Homeland? One of the main characters in that show, Carrie Matheson, who works for the CIA, but she also has in the show bipolar disorder. And they demonstrate some of her symptoms when she's having a manic episode, the rapid talking and the risky sexual behavior, where she will hook up with people almost on a nightly behavior. So here are a list of the symptoms in one study at least, and how common they are in people who have bipolar disorder. And so you can see at the top the increased activity. That's more common even